Nun Tes Summit Base, the end of the first line, right at the top of the Amud. Omer le Rav Shemen bar Abba le Rav Papa. We learned previously that if a person is in Mechusar Kippurim, so for instance he's a Mitzayra, and in order to become completely Torah, in order to eat Kachim, he has to not only be Toivel, but after the 7th day, on the 8th day, he has to bring his Korbanos. If on the 8th day he did not bring his Korbanos, and the ready is after the Makriv the Talmud Shel Bein HaRabayim, and we have an Isser to be Makriv the Korbanos after the Talmud Shel Bein HaRabayim, what's his Eitzah? If he's not Makriv the Korban of his Mechusar Kippurim, then what is he going? He's not going to be able to eat the Kachim at nighttime, and he's not going to be able to time the essay of eating the Korbanos of eating the Kachim. So the nature that was given is that he does the Avodah, he does his Rigas Adam, but he doesn't burn it on the Mizbeach, he leaves it on the top of the Mizbeach, and therefore there's no Isser of Hashlama, because the Isser of Hashlama is only to burn things on the Mizbeach after the Talmud Shel Bein HaRabayim. He leaves it on top of the Mizbeach so that it's not Posel Belina, and he leaves it till the next morning, and then he burns it on the Mizbeach after the Talmud Shel Shachar of the next morning. So Amr le Rav Shemen bar Abba Rav Papa l'didach tamrid mala melina b'rosh Mizbeach. You say that the Neitza is to leave it on top of the Mizbeach. Kaimen v'avdina and milsa dekahanim da'asibeli de takala. Should we do something and leave it on the Mizbeach that can bring lidei takala, that the Kahanim will come and have a takola, the savi the yamu v'asilakturim, because they'll think that this is a korban from that day. They'll think that it's a korban of that day that you could put on the Mizbeach. They don't know that is a case is talking where you did the avodah, you did the Zrikas Adam after the Talmud Shel Bein HaRabayim. Now, as we'll learn shortly, that if the Zrikas Adam was done before the Talmud Shel Bein HaRabayim, you can even burn it on the Mizbeach that very same night, even after the Talmud Shel Bein HaRabayim. The Isser is only if the avodah was done after the Talmud Shel Bein HaRabayim. So over here, Kohanim are busy burning things on the Mizbeach. They're burning things on the Mizbeach the whole night. Now, if you're going to put this on top of the Mizbeach where this cannot be burnt that night, you have to leave it till the next morning. Do we do something that could be a takola for the Kohanim, that they'll put them in a situation where they could be being over and Isser? They won't know the difference between the two, and they'll be mocked to this one also on the Mizbeach that night. Omerle, it's not a problem because Kohanim is reason hain. They're diligent, and they know that this korban over here, that they're malin on the Rosh Mizbeach, is one that cannot be burnt at that night. It only has to be the next day. It has to be delayed. Wait till the next morning to burn it the next morning. How can you say that you leave it on top of the Mizbeach and you burn it the next day? If the imurim are not going to be burnt that night, then the Kohanim can't eat the meat. The Kohanim can only eat the meat of the korban after your makter the imurim. Now, in this particular korban that the Mechusar Kippurim brings, we're saying you can't burn it that night. That means that the Kohanim can't eat the meat of the korban that night. Tisanya, we learned, you might think the Kohanim can eat the chaz shaik, that's the part of the korbanos that come to them, the chest and the thigh. You might think that they can eat before they're makter the imurim. First it says the kohen is makter, he burns the chel of the fat the imurim on the mizbeach. Then it says v'hadar v'haya chazal l'har l'bana. And then only after that it says that the chazal, the chest, is for l'bana. So they can only eat the basar after the makter the imurim. Now the second step is the kohanim lo yachli basar. Now a second step in the question is, so long as the kohanim don't eat the meat, ba'am lo miskaprin, the baalim don't get a kapara. So the kohanim can only eat the basar after the makter the imurim. Now if the kohanim don't eat the basar, the baalim don't get a kapara. Sanya, because how do we know that? Because it says va'ochlo oisam asher kuper behem. It says that they eat it. Va'ochlo oisam, the kahanim eat the korban, eat the basar asher kuper behem, and it says they eat it asher kuper, those who get a kapara. Those who get the ochlo oisam, they eat them asher kuper behem, those who get a kapara. Meaning that whoever is required to get a kapara only gets a kapara when va'ochlo oisam, only when the kahanim eat them. So therefore, so therefore, in this case over here, if we're saying that the kahanim over here, they can't eat the basar, because they can only eat the basar when after there is a makta de murim, and over here you're telling me they're not makta de murim until the next day. That means the kahanim l'chayr can't eat the basar also, and therefore the kahanim don't get a kapara. So therefore, what is being accomplished over here? The baalim of the ones who are mechusar kippurim l'chayr don't have a kapara yet, and they're not entitled to eat kachim. Omer le'setim came in the loyefsha. This is a case where it's not possible. Where do we say that the kahanim can only eat the basar only after they're maktir de murim? That's when you could be maktir de murim, where it's possible to be maktir de murim. But if it's not possible to be maktir de murim, they could eat the basar. So over here, it's loyefsha. They can't be maktir de murim because they already were maktir the tamid shel bein harabayim. So over here, it's treated like a case where the murim became lost or tome, where you can't be maktir it. The Sani, we learned the Braisa yochel nitmui murim b'shavd. You might think in such a case, you might think that even in that case, the kahanim can't eat the basar, they can't eat the chaz v'shayik. It says it should be for them. So it stresses that it should be for them. Mikol Malcolm, in any event, meaning that we have a ribuy over here that says that they're entitled to the basar in any event. We learned before that they are not entitled to eat the basar only after the makta de murim, but therefore we resolve it by saying where it's efshar, where it's impossible, where you can't be makta de murim, they could eat the basar. So this case over here, they can't be makta de murim because they already were makta the tamid shel bein harabayim. So therefore, it's like it will be lost or tomei, and the kahanim are entitled to eat the basar, and therefore the baalim do get a kapara. Rav Kahana Rami. Rav Kahana asks us here. See if it says it says you can't leave over the fast of the korban. They move the body of the korban. You can't leave it over till the morning, till boiker, which implies ad boiker hu d'lo. You can't leave it over till the morning. However, but you could leave it over during the night as long as it's burnt before morning. It could be remained there at night, overnight, as long as it's burned before morning. How can you burn it during the nighttime? How can you burn it? How can you burn on the mizbeach a korban after the tamid shel bein harabayim? We learned that you can't be burned on the mizbeach after the tamid shel bein harabayim. We learned that there's a mitzvah shloma, and therefore things cannot be burnt on the mizbeach after the tamid shel bein harabayim. What we're referring to over here is, as we mentioned before, where it was left over, meaning it was left over from a korban who the zrikas adam was done before the tamid of bein harabayim. So there you don't have this. In this case, the mitzvah shlomi is that after the tamid bein harabayim, if the korban, you were not makar of a korban, you didn't do the zrikas adam, then to do the burning of the on the mizbeach of a korban that you're only makriv after the tamid shel bein harabayim is awesome. There's a mitzvah shlama. But if you did the avodah before the tamid shel bein harabayim, they did the zrikas adam before the tamid shel bein harabayim, then the murim of that korban could be burnt on the mizbeach even after the tamid shel bein harabayim. Rami Lev Safra L'Rav, he has to steer Ksiv Lo Yolin L'Baiker Zevach Chag HaPasuk. It says you can't leave over to the morning the Zevach Chag HaPasuk. So we learn L'Baiker who the Lo Yolin. It says L'Baiker, you can't leave it over to the morning. Ha Kol Halayla Yolin, but you could leave it over during the night. Meaning, you could, as long as you burn it before morning, you could burn it at nighttime. You could leave it over at the night. How could you say that? How can you burn it? Vaksiv oilas Shabbos b'Shabbatoi v'loy oilas chol b'Shabbos v'loy oilas chol b'Yontiv. How can you do that? The korban of the Korban Pesach is on Yudalit, is Erev Yontiv. So it's a korban of chol. It's a korban of a weekday. Now we're saying that you bring the korban, you do the avodas hadam on Yudalit. And we're making a diuk similar to the diuk we made before. We make a diuk that you can't leave it over till the morning, which implies that you could burn it at night. You could burn the fat of the korban on the mizbeach at nighttime. How could you? There is the nighttime. It's Yontif. It's Pesach, and this korban is a korban shel chol. It's a korban of the weekday. How can you burn a weekday korban on Yontif? It's oilas Shabbos b'Shabbata. You can be makriv on the mizbeach and burn on the mizbeach a korban of Shabbos, oila Shabbos b'Shabbat, but not an oila of chol, a weekday on Shabbos v'lo oilas chol b'yontiv. So how can you burn this on the mizbeach? It's a korban of chol of erev Pesach, and how can you burn it on Yontiv on Pesach? Amr Lake for Ramyalale, Ravav Barchiel, Rabavo, he asked the steer of Vishanal, and he answered it. This pasuk and this dik that we make, that it's mutter to burn on his beich, is talking in a specific case where the Yud Dalit is on Shabbos. So it's not a korban of a chol, it's a korban of Shabbos. And we're talking about where Yud Dalit was Shabbos, the Chelve Shabbos Krev B'Yontiv, the korbanos, the chalavim, the emurim, the fat of a korban of Shabbos, you could be makrav on Yontiv. So we're talking in a specific case where Yud Dalit is on Shabbos. Amar Lei said to Mishum the Chelve Shabbos Krev B'Yontiv, because you find this heter over here, Anan Nekam V'Nemala, the high krab Arbasar Shechalias B'Shabbosu. Should we say that because we have this heter in this specific case, should we say that the pasuk is talking dafka in the specific case where Yud Dalit falls out on Shabbos? Should we say that the Kroy is talking about Basar Shechalias b'Shabbos? It's talking specific in such a case. Amalei Shavke l'Kroy, leave the pasuk, do dachik ma'kenavshi, because the pasuk is in itself telling you that, it's forcing you to learn it that way, because there's no other way to learn it. So al korcha, the pasuk must be talking where Yud Dalit is Shabbos. Zok the Mishnah, Pesach sheshach shaloi lishma. If you shech the korban Pesach shaloi lishma. Now, generally speaking, korbanos, you have to do it. You have to do the avodah lishma for the sake of that korban. So if you're bringing an oila, it has to be done for an oila. A shlomim, etc. If a person didn't do that, then the rule is, generally speaking, that the korban is kosher, but he was not yoytze yidei chayvasa. He's not yoytze yischiv. The korban is kosher, but he has to bring another korban because he hasn't fulfilled his obligation, with the exception of Pesach and Chatas, where and by korban Pesach and korban Chatas, over there, if you did a shaloi lishma, then we say the korban is even possible. The pasuk says that in zevach Pesachu, that it is a korban matam zevach Pesachu. It is a zevach Pesach. So I mean it has to be l'shem the Pesach. It can't be done l'shem another korban. Where are the critical junctures where lishma makes a difference? It's by the avodas. It's by shchita. It's by kabbalas adam, hoilocha, and zrikas adam. That is where the critical factor is. Now, what does it mean where we say shaloi lishma? Now, the Gemara and the Mishnah and the Gemara, they uses a lashon throughout, a lashon of machshava, is machashiv. So some learn And the Mishnah Malach is medayik in the Rambam that it's even a machshava, even a thought, even just thinking that it should be for a different korban, that alone would passel it, even if it's only a machshava. But the Rashi is mashma that it's not just a machshava, that it's a dibur. It's only if he speaks it out. If he says that he is doing it for a different korban. It's actually we do it in the pasuk, v'amartem zevach pesachu, that only a dibur will constitute shaloi lishma. So, sagt the Mishnah, ha-pesach sheshalta shaloi lishma, v'shafta the pesach shaloi lishma, kibel v'halach v'zarag, and then he did the kabol zadam, and he brought the mizbech and did the zrika shaloi lishma, and he did it shaloi lishma. So he shachted it shaloi lishma, and then he did the other avodas shaloi lishma. So then, he did it oy lishma, ushaloi lishma, or alternatively, even if he started with a machshava lishma, but then he went off, and then he veered and he did it shaloi lishma. Oy shaloi lishma lishma, or alternatively, he started shaloi lishma and then he corrected and he did it lishma. Possible in all of these cases. It's possible. It's possible in all of these cases. Kesa lishma shaloi lishma. What's an example of lishma shaloi lishma? L'shem pesach l'shem shlomim. He started off l'shem pesach and then he veered. He went off and did l'shem shlomim. So that's lishma shaloisha. Shaloi lishma lishma. What's an example of shaloi lishma alishma? Then l'shem shlamim. He started off in the wrong way. He started with shlamim. And corrected l'shem pesach. In all of these cases, then the korban is possible.